It's like being an addict. Enjoy the ocean, baby. If you like beaches, of course. Is it my fault? Is it her fault? Or is it nobody's fault? It's funny how we human beings are always focused on the physical aspect of health, and the mental one is being totally neglected until life gives you boot in the butt. Then we start to worry and try to find different ways to decode this human condition. The mind is a very peculiar thing. When it comes to physical health, if there's a problem, we do research, we analyze, we solve it. If you're fat, you get on a diet, you exercise some, and voila, after 2-3 months, you're on a good way to prolong your life. But mental health is very subjective and objective at the same time. Subjective because no one knows how you feel. Objective because we all human beings experience same stuff. The mind is much more tricky to decipher because you cannot see in the mirror whether something is wrong with you or not, as opposed to physical abnormalities. And one of those damaging conditions, a pandemic if you want, is a restless mind. Also, being in a real pandemic, it's a good opportunity to delve into this topic, grounding yourself in the present moment.
Very many of us suffer from a peculiar sounding problem, an inability properly to inhabit the stretch of time we call the present. Maybe we're on a beautiful beach on a sunny day, the sky is azure and the palm trees slender and implausibly delicate, but most of us isn't actually here at all. It's somewhere at work or in imaginary discussion with a rival or plotting a new enterprise.
I was actually watching this video with Alain de Botton talking about vacations and how we have this inability to relax during these couple of weeks away from our home place. We cannot relax because there's one person that always follows us and we can never seem to get rid of us. There are so many unresolved problems that create anxiety in your mind and you cannot seem to enjoy the scenery, enjoy the weather, enjoy the ocean, baby. If you like beaches, of course. One of the biggest factors creating that sensation is that we human beings commit to too many things without being able to handle them. Whether it's your job, taking too many projects, or your relationship with your spouse, where you thought that you were on the verge to split, but instead of taking a step back, you took 2 steps forward and had twins. People commit to things just because society thinks that they should, and there's no deeper conviction to why they are doing those stuff.
Or maybe we're at the birthday of a child. It's enormously significant for her and we love her dearly, but we are elsewhere. Our body is rooted in the now, but our minds are skipping to points in both the future and the past.
A funny scenario, yet very sad. A funny because you know exactly how it feels. Sad because you know how much stress and anxiety was created in order to get this party going. And as everything is done, clean and tidy and prepared for guests' arrival, the parents are standing in the corner, holding some drinks in their hands, zoning out with their eyes, fantasizing about peace of mind.
What is it that makes the present, especially the nicer moments of the present, so difficult to experience properly? And why, conversely, can so many events feel easier to enjoy, appreciate, and perceive when they're firmly over? One benefit of the past is that it is a dramatically foreshortened, edited version of the present. Even the best days of our lives contain a range of dull or uncomfortable moments. But in memory, like skilled editors of hours of raw and often uninspired footage, we can lock on to the most consequential moments, and therefore construct sequences that feel a great deal more meaningful and interesting than the settings that generated them.
This is exactly the same situation when you're getting dumped. We people tend to remember only good days, good times, sift through bad memories, which is very destructive, creating a picture that never was there. And you cling on to it, thinking that you missed something good in your life. Instead of looking back at the past objectively and making rational assessment of what really happened. Is it my fault? Is it her fault? Or is it nobody's fault? What can we learn from this lesson? I dare you to watch some old films that you remember from your childhood. They won't feel the same with your new eyes, because what you felt then was through eyes of a person who doesn't exist anymore. There's always a huge chunk of disappointment whenever we glare over the days of past glory.
Hours of mediocrity can be reduced to 5 or 6 perfect images. Nostalgia is the present enhanced by an editing machine. Much of what ruins the present is sheer anxiety. The present always contains an enormous number of possibilities, some hugely gruesome, which we're constantly aware of. Anything could theoretically happen, an earthquake, an aneurysm, a rejection, which gives rise to a non-specific anxiety that trails around us most of the time, the simple dread at the unknownness of what is to come.
This is true because most people who are drifting away in their minds tend to be very anxious people. They cannot seem to handle the feedback that they get from the surroundings and become anxious of the stuff that they don't hold control over, which is basically being insane because the only person that we have control over is the person that we see in the mirror. 99.9% of all things happening to us are very random. The only thing that will enhance your experience of this life is the way you react to the feedback that you get from the external.
But then, of course, only a very limited range of awful things do ever come to pass, and we forget the anxiety at once, or rather shift it to the new present. So when we remember an event, what we leave out of it is how much of that event we actually spent anticipating an appalling future that never came.
So typical. Anticipation is always much more satisfying than the event itself. It's like being an addict. Like if you have an unhealthy love for food, you are going through the day anticipating what you will be eating at the dinner table. The time that you are salivating in your mouth is several hours, but the moment that you really consume the food takes only 10-15 minutes. And now, it's gone. You received your hit. Now you can sit back and relax. Anticipation is also a form of restlessness of the mind. When you're looking forward to something, you are not being present. You are living in time, missing out on things that are happening around you.
Our bodies further contribute to our distraction from the present. They have their own moods and itineraries. They might feel tired and timid at just the moment when the landscape around us would demand grandeur and confidence. But these dissonant moods also get edited out of memory. We'll remember the view over the ocean far longer than the slight queasiness which turned us in on ourselves at the time.
Of course, the mood, the physical health, the energy levels will greatly contribute to your mental state. Personally, when I get very tired and on the verge to fall asleep, yet have to commute to my home like 30-40 minutes, I become very restless in mind and browse through my phone just so I can get past this excruciating experience of not being able to sleep. So your physical health and diet affects a lot your mood and whether you can focus on the present moment or not. It's important that we live in a synergy between mind and body because they are two parts of the same.
Our minds are cavernous, chaotic places. So much courses through them that has little to do with what is right in front of our eyes. We can end up seeming ungrateful to where we are. Someone is telling us an important story, and not from any evil motive, just from the difficulty of having to manage the entity called I, we digest some regret or other instead. We're at a beautiful location, but we can barely take in the vegetation and the extraordinary views, so fixated are we on an event that will only occur in 6 months' time.
When you're not satisfied with the moment that you have at hand, you always anticipate for something else, making yourself disappear from the earth. Because if you're not present, your body is just walking flesh, not a conscious human being. I hate when I talk to people and I clearly sense how they drift away and are not present, not listening to what I'm saying, especially people that are close to you.
You don't listen, do you?
If it's someone that I only know on a superficial level, then I walk away. But the thing is, all people are wrapped up in their own routines, and it becomes a horrible experience to be in their company because you don't get any exchange of information, the initial purpose of that interaction. It becomes a waste of time.
We need to be prepared for the weird way in which we align with the world and not berate ourselves unduly for our difficulties at doing justice to where our bodies and minds happen to be. We should be ready for this disloyalty in other people too, at moments when they look strangely worried at a party we've laid on, or don't seem to be listening to a story we're telling them. They too may just be experiencing some of the major difficulties of being in the present. Like us, they'll probably enjoy our encounter with us so much more when the present has safely given way to memory.
It is sad, really, tragic. There's so much information flowing around, distracting us from really experiencing this life. Tech gadgets are obvious ones, or the feeling of missing out. FOMO. Humanity has made a huge step into individualism, which makes personal success so much more important. So if you're not progressing, you are regressing. And instead of doing something, you do nothing. You become anxious and it becomes a negative spiral downwards into the pit of darkness. So if you're one of those who have a restless mind and cannot seem to ground yourself in the present moment, I suggest you to find out what you want from life. We all are made from the same cloth and going towards the same fate. The difference is what we're doing in order to alleviate the suffering that we experience on this earth as human beings. The best way to ground yourself in the present moment is to get creative. And for that, you have to know the kind of memories you want to create in this life. This requires for you to find your purpose, to focus your energy into creating something. Restlessness of the mind is a consequence of excessive energy. I repeat, a consequence of excessive energy. And the only way you will be satisfied if you focus that energy into bringing something to this life, a creation of yours. If you have any direction you are marching towards, your mind will totally become focused on that thing. A restless mind is a chaotic mind. You want to do many different stuff, but you have obligations that you have to attend to. And all of that creates so much anxiety and you end up not taking any action. Do not let your mind to control you. Remember, you are not your mind. That's how you can get hold of it, through deliberate and purposeful action. If you want to know what it takes to master yourself, watch this video. But for now, Hossein out.